So this might be low-hanging fruit, but I'm still going to be talking about guilt by association and the absolute stupidity of just getting offended. It seems like it's been overdone a million times. I get it, but again, like if it was overdone a million times, it's still an issue. It's still something that people actually think is an argument. It's still something that people will write an article about. So that's what we're going to do here. This is from News One, which I have never heard of before, but is apparently Black America's #1 news source, which I have no idea how true that is. I've never heard of it before. But this is an article posted on the 13th of March. Twitter has words for Bernie Sanders saying the word niggardly in 1986. Now, I mean, I get the impression that comes from that word. Like, if you've never heard that word before, like, yeah, you know what comes to mind when you think of that word. But the word does mean stingy. What it means is stingy. Like, that's what it means. And actually, you'll see from the first paragraph here, while the adjective that dates back to the mid-16th century is not at all linked to the N-word, by 1986, when the video was recorded, someone who considered himself to be a civil rights leader should have known better. Now, the interesting thing is, they didn't seem to, maybe they didn't care, but they didn't seem to do any kind of research into people getting upset back in 1986. That's the thing. Like, nobody seemed to get upset then. If people did get upset back then, the article didn't think to take that into context or to point that out or reference that. So I think we can safely assume that the argument rests on the fact that we should still be upset about it, even though it was 1986, and whether or not people complained about it, if they didn't, it's still a reason to get upset. But yeah, it's a word that nobody really uses in the English language anymore. I don't think I've ever heard someone use that since 1986, since Bernie Sanders said it here. I am aware of the word, but it's something that I've never seen people use today, and I imagine maybe it's because of what the word sounds like. But we got to keep in mind 1986 here. Like, there's the joke about how do you defeat someone? Like the joke of how do we defeat Thanos? Well, we'll dig up his racist tweets from 2009. The idea that someone says something in 1986 and you don't like it, therefore the person is bad today. And there's just so much wrong with this article that I want to point out. For one, Twitter has words for Bernie Sanders. We'll go through just the title. Twitter has words for Bernie Sanders, which essentially means a Twitter where millions upon millions of people are tweeting all of the time. It's something like, I forget the exact number that Jack Dorsey said on Joe Rogan. It was something like 100 million tweets. And I don't know if that was per day or what. But loads of people are using Twitter, which means that if I want to prove something, if I want to if I really want to argue for something, that people are thinking this, I can get 6 tweets, and there you go. I can find 6 people, it's what they did with Ocasio-Cortez when they said people are mad that or conservatives are mad that Ocasio-Cortez was dancing. It's like they found 2 tweets, 2, and I think both of them had a combined following of 800 people. So in other words, nobodies. We don't even know if they were real people. They could have been bots. We have no idea. It's that kind of thing. So when someone says people online are upset, Twitter has words for their sources, as I'll scroll below and show you here. Here's the for one, they say Twitter has words for, which implies people are upset or people are passionate about a topic, and as you see, again, it really doesn't show much. We'll scroll down here. Their first example, which they took the time to number. Again, I don't know why you would even number that in an article. Number 1, 179 likes. Number 2, 6 likes. Number 3, 4,000 likes, blue check mark. Okay, the third one is, I would say, a legitimate source because the person is apparently a public figure. Fourth one, 9 likes. Fifth one, 70 likes. 6, 21 likes. Number 7 doesn't even show up here, and I'm not going to take time to click through it. Number 8, 16 likes. Number 9, 6 likes. Number 10, 30 likes. In other words, besides that example number 3, these are all pretty much nobodies. These are all random people on the internet. I clicked through a few of them. Some of them have the vast majority of them, or the majority of them, have less followers than I do, and I am by no means a public figure. And that's the thing. Why are we referencing this? Why are we using these people as a source? Again, if you want to say people are saying this, you know what you can do? You can take a poll when you get 10,000 results. Then you can say people are saying this. When you get 10,000 results and they all, the majority of them say, yes, we are upset about this, then you can say Twitter is saying this. Twitter has words for. But until then, again, you can prove literally anything. I can go in an hour. I can have 10 fake accounts saying 10 things and and spread them around to get a few likes. It's not that hard to do. So when I see articles like this, that kind of bugs me, because it's like, what's even the point of writing this if it's not just pure trying to push an agenda, then make you seem legitimate? Like, this is one person with one opinion, and they're like, oh, I got 6 other random people to support my view. Like, that doesn't make the view better. And they devoted roughly half the article to just citing, like, oh, random people on the internet. Second part, Bernie Sanders said a word, and as they have established in the very first paragraph, they didn't even say an offensive word. They said a word that sounds like an offensive word, which again, that's not so. You're no longer getting mad at offensive words. Now, like the N-word, sure, if you want to get mad at that, that's fine. I understand that. The reason behind getting upset about that is because nobody really says that unless they mean it. Like, it's not necessarily the word, it's the intent behind it that matters. And no one says that word unless they have, like, a cruel intent behind it. Now, even then, like, there are a few examples we can think of as PewDiePie saying it. Like, again, the intent was not to offend or to be racist or anything. In that sense, yeah, you can clear them for that. But I can understand someone getting upset at someone using the N-word as an insult. I understand that. That's why I don't really say. But when you're now getting upset that someone said a word that sounds like an offensive word, no, there's no reason to get upset. Third, in 1986. This is 1986. This is forever ago. This is like, when you have to dig back to 1986 to attack someone in this, remember, I don't like Bernie Sanders. I don't want him to win. I don't think he's a good candidate. I don't think he'd be good for our country. I prefer if he didn't run. I prefer he wasn't in Congress. That being said, I have to defend him in this respect, because in 1986, he said a word that sounded like another word, and 7 people got mad at it. This is something we should not be getting upset over. This is something we should not be talking about. And I understand that, like, News One, I've never heard of them before, so if they are popular, I'm just not aware of them. So, but this is one person that wrote an article. I mean, it's written by News One staff, so I guess you could say it's an organization that is mad and not just one individual contributor. But they found 6 sources. I'm not getting mad that people are saying this. I'm using this as an example to say this is not what you should be getting upset about. And people have really got, I kind of feel bad for Bernie Sanders a little bit, because you'll see you'll see him just kind of trudge along and he comes across very spineless. And I kind of feel bad for him in that respect, because, like, how many presidential candidates just have protesters run up on stage and take their microphone, and the candidate's just like, okay. That chair is squeaky. And I kind of feel bad for him. But again, like, I'm hoping maybe people that are fans of Bernie Sanders will realize this. They'll realize the problem with getting upset about little things like this. They'll realize the problem where if someone says something in 1986, there's no reason to get upset. Like, I know Bernie Sanders supporters will defend this, will defend him saying this and saying, oh, no big deal. Like, come on, it was in 1986. Come on, like, 6 people were upset. Come on, like, it's not even an offensive word. It's a word that sounds like an offensive word. They'll defend it. And I'm just saying, if you're watching this, apply that across the board. Apply that to everyone, even the people you disagree with. If someone said something bad forever ago, you can dismiss it. Like, it doesn't matter what they said forever ago. What matters is what they say now. Now, if they said something forever, it's something like, if they said something forever ago and they stand by it today, then you can reference something from 2 days ago, from a week ago, from a month ago. You didn't have to go back to 1986. The fact that you had to go back so far means that probably don't stand by that today. They probably don't stand by it much, because they don't have a more recent example than 1986. But we'll go through quick. Here's the actual video. You know what? I'm just going to play it quick. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down.
But during the course of this campaign, if you follow the issues that we're talking about, funding for social services, I am not going to be niggardly about funding for daycare. We are going to break the crisis in daycare in the state of Vermont if I'm elected governor. We're not going to have a situation where in some counties you have 15% availability.
Okay, so that's the context for that. The original tweet says, which got 6,000 likes, so I'm not going to ignore that. But again, that is, it's the person that originally shared it, like, sure, big verified blue check mark, lots of followers. But then my problem is they're the sources. Like, you can say, if you want to say, one person said this, and some people agree. Like, you don't know why people click the heart, that kind of thing. And the weird thing is you look at the ratio, 6,407 likes, 6,732 people are talking about this. So exactly how many people agree and disagree? I know it's not a slur, but I've always wondered why a person would choose to say that word when stingy would do just as well. Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. Like, I would use the word stingy. Like, this is not a word that I use often in my vocabulary. In fact, I don't think I've ever used it in my vocabulary because it's just not a word I ever really say. It's not a word that, when you're trying to say something, it's not a word that comes to mind. But yet still people get upset about it. It's like, do you really think Bernie Sanders went out of his way to say that word? You really think he was like, you really think that, I don't know if this was a speech or if this was just ad-lib. He just said whatever came to mind. But the thing is, if it was part of a speech, it sounded like he was just saying it because it was the first word that came to mind. And if it was the first word that came to mind, sure, like, people have to understand that. Like, when you say a word, when you're doing what I'm doing right now and just saying things that come to mind, you don't really have a written out speech. You don't have a written out geez, well, it's evident that I don't really have something written out because I can't even think of what I'm going to say here. When it's evident that you don't have everything written out, you can be forgiving on what they say. You can be forgiving on their words because they had 0.2 seconds to really think about the next word they're going to say. I'm not even consciously thinking about half the words I'm saying right now. I'm just saying them because they come to mind and they're what I'm trying to get at. They're the point I'm trying. I'm using them to make the point I'm trying to make, and that's why what I'm saying here, it's not the individual words that matter. It's my grand point. Whereas, sure, if I was writing, I write articles too sometimes. I have a weekly column. When I write something in that weekly column, if you want to be particular about a certain word, I'm fine with that because when you write an article, you're really thinking about what you want to say. You're not just using like a text to speech or a speech to text, I guess, kind of thing. You're just in that sense you can be more particular. But again, what Bernie's saying here is he just chose a word, and it's like you didn't even get mad at what he was saying. You didn't even comment on what he was saying. Like, this video here is the only way I can figure out what the context was, what he was talking. He was talking about daycare. And I don't see that reference anywhere besides in the tweet they referenced. And they didn't even comment on his point. They just commented about one word that he said about this whole thing. What is my scroll doing? The word technically means stingy, which means he was probably better off saying. That's not the English language. Please, grammar. A little more than a decade after Sanders uttered the word, some controversy began around the word. So, what you're saying here is a little more than a decade after Sanders uttered the word, some controversy began. Decade after. They even have it here. A decade after he said it, it became controversial. So what you're saying is, this is, okay, you know the concept of, I should know this, but I can't think of it right now. I can't think of what it's called. But the concept of essentially, you can't go back and punish people for something that wasn't wrong before, back when it happened. So, like, if the government passes a law right now, we pass legislation making something illegal, and I previously did that thing that was illegal, but I don't do it anymore. You can't come back and charge me for that because it wasn't the law before. I can't think of what that's called. I should know this term, but that's essentially the term doesn't matter. It's the principle that matters. The idea that once we pass a law, the law is now in effect from that point on. It doesn't retroactively affect people in the past that may have violated the law before it even became a law. And what's happening here is we're saying Bernie Sanders should have known better. He should have known better not to say a certain word that started stirring up controversy a decade after he said the word. So yeah. And they provide a few examples here of other Bernie Sanders screw-ups. And it's just funny to see. They even accuse him of, 1 month earlier, Sanders seemed to culturally appropriate Frederick Douglass' good name by conflating the abolitionist's famous words, "If there was no struggle, there is no progress," with the greed of Wall Street, drug companies, fossil fuel industry, the NRA, the military-industrial complex, and other special interests. The obvious omission was any mention of civil rights, voting rights, or race, all of which Douglass, quote, was referring to. Now, again, the fact that they say seemed, and then the fact that they say culturally appropriate, which, again, like, how is that even cultural appropriate? I don't understand that at all. They're both Americans. But yeah, that's pretty much it here. I just wanted to, like, I get that this article is probably not too popular. This article is not like this, just some people on the internet. And again, I'm not going to do the Twitter has words for by saying, oh, loads of people think this. No, I think most people are smart enough to see the ridiculousness of this, but I still want to point it out because it extrapolates to later things. Like, I'm not just criticizing the article, I am pointing out certain bits used in this article that are used elsewhere by loads of other people, by Bernie Sanders supporters, and I'm just trying to point that out. There's an issue here. And I'm hoping all the attacks on Bernie Sanders like really wake up a lot of the Bernie supporters as to the ridiculousness of the whole guilt by association, the idea of getting mad at something someone said back before it was even controversial, that kind of thing. The Twitter has words for, or people are saying, and it's like citations, 10 people. Some of them have like 6 likes. That's the thing. If I were to write an article, I don't think I've ever written an article that quoted a tweet, or that quoted tweets. But if I found a tweet that had 6 likes, it's not worth including. I get that, like, they might be a public figure even if they don't have a blue check mark. I get that. But if they have like 600 likes, okay, maybe I might consider that. If they have 40, no. I'm not citing that as a source. I'm not citing that because what you're saying is just some rando on the internet is saying this. Okay, there are 300 million people, over 300 million people in the US. There's 7 billion people in this world. That's not enough to say to really make your point. That's my point. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you agree, disagree, what you think. And thanks for watching.